Good afternoon to those of you who are on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast in the Central Time Zone. Amongst the continued requests and urgent needs of the IDF that FIDF has been funding, one of the programs you may be familiar with is something called Operation Hug. FIDF has funded hundreds and hundreds of parents of lone soldiers to be in Israel, to be with their children when their child gets a day out of Gaza, a day out of the north, etc. And that's a program we do in conjunction with Nefesh B'Nefesh. So far, we've covered every family that has gone to Israel from North America, and we continue to participate in that program with our wonderful partner, Nefesh B'Nefesh. We are blessed today to have two very special guests. Of course, our General, Major General Nadav Padan, who will be addressing us in the second part of this briefing. But we have a very special person, and that is Corporal Kelly. Corporal Kelly made Aliyah, became a lone soldier. She came to Israel, was a lone soldier. At this point, she's been called back as a reserve, and she's serving in Dovrei Tzahal, in the spokesperson's office, briefing the Anglo press, briefing groups like ourselves from across the world daily as events are happening in the South and the North and throughout the country. At this point, we want to hand it over to Corporal Kelly, and we thank you so much for your personal sacrifice, for your personal commitment to Israel, and for being a role model to all of us, who hopefully one day will follow in your footsteps and do the ultimate, make Aliyah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve, for that briefing, that wonderful introduction. It's really my honor to be here. I'm so privileged to have the chance to speak to you and to update you on everything that's been going on. This is a really historic time, as we know. We're not only fighting for the IDF, we're not only fighting for the state of Israel, we really are fighting for the entire Jewish nation. I think it is a historic moment for the history of our people, and anyone who is involved in it, who is listening to briefings, who is sharing things on social media, everyone who plays a part in this is really helping us towards winning and towards making sure that we can survive as a nation. So thank you for having me. Should I start with giving some updates? Okay. So as you may have seen or you may not have seen in international press, Israel is still under heavy rockets attacks, and we are currently engaged full on in operations within Gaza and around the borders, as you have been hearing over the last few days. Just a quick briefing, what we have been experiencing in the past 24, 48 hours. So there have been barrages of rocket attacks, and 2 days ago it was from Gaza and to Tel Aviv, and yesterday and today from Lebanon. Over this entire period, around 11,000 rockets have been fired. But what is new and what is challenging is that Hamas are firing these rockets from the humanitarian zones in Gaza. So this means that this is the clearest example of a human shield that can actually be, put in front of everyone's eyes. This is a humanitarian zones and areas designated in Gaza where the people are, where the civilians of Gaza have been told to go. And from there, we are seeing these rockets being fired. Just a quick remark about rockets last night from Lebanon. Rockets were fired from Lebanon yesterday, 20 meters away from a United Nations compound. So we are in touch with the United Nations about this. The UNIFIL head of the UNIFIL branch on the border between Lebanon and Israel has been notified that 20 meters away from this compound, Hezbollah shot rockets towards Lebanon, and this is really a clear violation of 1701, the resolution, along with hundreds of other violations of this resolution. So it's just important to state that. What Hezbollah is trying to do is they're trying to distract the IDF from the operations in Gaza. Every time we increase our strikes in Gaza, we see a response from Lebanon and from Hezbollah. And so this is really their strategy to try and distract us. Now, what is going on within Gaza is that there is intensive battles, mainly within Khan Yunis, Shuja'iyya, and in Jabalia. These are areas where they are really a stronghold of Hamas, both politically and militarily. They are also the homes to Sinwar and Defi, Mohammed Defi. We have encircled the area of Khan Yunis, and we are on a constant, and as we repeatedly say, our two missions are, one, to defeat Hamas fully and to receive our hostages and to release our hostages. And I think that, there's been a lot of talk about operations of IDF soldiers that have been attempting to release these hostages. What we can say is that there was an attempt and 2 people were injured. At this point, we are trying constantly to receive and to release these hostages. It is something that is ongoing. We want to, as much as possible, do it without any IDF injury, without any harm. We are risking our soldiers. Another part of how we are risking our soldiers is that we are continuing every day and almost every hour to remind the Gazan civilians to evacuate. This complicates our operational plans. It complicates our operational plans because we are now almost giving advance warning of where we are acting. And so not only are we making sure that we're complying to international law, but we're also trying to ensure that we do not cause any harm to the Palestinian civilians. So let's just talk a little bit about the evacuation. As I said, we're continuing all efforts that we can. The website, we posted a website. On this website, it's interactive. Gazan civilians are meant to go onto that website and, see where their safe zones are, where they should go. And we got many queries about that in the beginning of the launch of this website. If there was internet, how are they supposed to, to use it if there's no power? We've addressed all those issues, that they do have access and they do have cellular capabilities. However, one interesting piece of data is that in the first 3 days of the website being launched, there were about 250,000 entries from within the Gaza Strip onto the website. Out of a population of 2 million, 250,000 is quite impressive in 3 days. And 70% of those were all inside the Gaza Strip. So it clearly is a system that is effective. They are going onto that website. They're using it as a tool. And this is also in addition to the leaflets, to the announcements on radio, to the phone calls. This is something that is ongoing according to international law, and really just so frustrating that Hamas are using these civilians still as human shields. There are reports of Hamas stopping them from evacuating still to this day. And it's really something we are battling with, but we are trying as much as we can to remove the civilians from this area. So something else about Khan Yunis is that in the past few days, they found a Mein Kampf book written in Arabic. They found a teddy bear stuffed with weapons. They found universities, filled with grenades. These are all distressing, that these human shields were made in schools and universities in teddy bears next to children. And I think that it's worth mentioning that, there's been a lot of talk about the viral footage of Hamas or Palestinian civilians standing in their underwear. These are distressing images. These are images we do not, they do not come across as well. I just want to address this by saying that that we are trying to eliminate Hamas from Gaza, and whoever is suspected of conducting terrorist activity is being checked by the IDF, investigated, and then released if he is innocent. And the reason that their clothes have been removed is because the IDF cannot risk soldiers' lives if they are armed with grenades and rifles in their pockets, something that, as Hamas, who dress in civilian clothing, do very, very often. So this is not visuals we want to see. This is not something that the IDF, wants to spread. This is truly just a situation of where they needed to be interrogated, and rifles and grenades were taken off of them. Okay, regarding, I'll just give you a little update about the humanitarian aid that's coming in. There's almost close to 63,000 tons of humanitarian aid. We're continuously bringing aid in, 3,500 trucks containing food, medical supplies, all the needs necessary. Gas, fuel is also coming in. And we are situating low tactical pauses so that these humanitarian needs can get to the people of Gaza and not to the hands of Hamas. However, there has been footage that Hamas has been stealing these humanitarian aid. So it's just to notice and to pay attention that the world doesn't see all the humanitarian aid that's going in and doesn't report about it, but also that they don't report the fact that Hamas, it's mainly going to the hands of Hamas. Until the Hamas leaders stop hiding behind the civilians, we are going to try and help the citizens leave those areas, and we're going to help try and mitigate as much harm as possible. But until Hamas cannot stop hiding underneath and behind those civilians, we are really in a difficult situation.
Corporal Kelly, I want to thank you for that briefing on behalf of all of us in the United States, to wish you a happy fourth night of Hanukkah. I mean,
thank you.
In the States, we're not quite there yet, but those in Israel, we want to wish you a happy fourth night of Hanukkah, and to thank you. To thank you for what you're doing for Israel, for the Jewish people, and to wish you incredible success, not only in your personal life, but in your role representing the IDF.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this point, we want to turn it over to Major General Nadav Padan. Major General Padan, if we could start out by asking you one or two questions. The first question we would ask you is this. As Corporal Kelly mentioned, for now 2 weeks, the population in Khan Yunis has been told to leave. It's been told to go into other areas of the Gaza. At this point, if people are still in Khan Yunis, chances are that those are Hamas fighters. Chances are those are people looking to cause severe damage to Israel, either to its hostages or to its soldiers. So the question that many people are asking is, why are we risking our soldiers, the soldiers' lives? Why not use a more robust air campaign to take out certain neighborhoods in Khan Yunis, seeing that after 2 weeks already, it's given people ample time to leave Khan Yunis? That's the first question. If you feel comfortable addressing that issue.
Yeah, let's start with that and then go to the next question. So I must tell you that the IDF are not blocking this from securing the life of our soldier. We've limited the way we are operating in especially not in the north part of Gaza Strip. And I must tell you that when the Minister of Defense spoke yesterday about the beginning of the break or the crack at the ability of Hamas to control, he spoke about event that we're facing the last few days, especially at the neighborhood of the north part of Gaza, in Shujaiya, in Jabalia, and even in places that we didn't, totally clear yet, Tufah, Daraj, and other neighborhoods. What we can see that people that been held in so far got the name as a temporary shelters of population inside those neighborhoods, in schools or a clinic. They're actually been held by Hamas as human shield. And we have picture, video that hopefully will released by the IDF spokesperson later on today that show what happened to families that tried to leave those shelters. The Hamas shooting their back. So it's not that they're necessarily involved. They're hostages or took by force to play a role of human shields for the Hamas terrorists. The issue is that those terrorists that holding them are start starving, are start feeling that the novel leadership of Hamas that's supporting them, they are surrendered the last three, and especially the last 2 days. All those echelons of men that been seen at the media marching at the streets of Gaza are men at the right age, took by the IDF to a security check, and not all of them, but I must tell you that part of them are Hamas or Islamic Jihad terrorists, even elite Nukhba terrorists, and other are just civilians. They could be a Muslim Brotherhood supporter or Hamas supporter, but they are not terrorists or activists in the movement. And the other are marching. I mean, all the other family, the elders, the women, and the kids are marching in kind of a humanitarian path that we open to the south. So it's not that we are blocking ourselves, not at the north part of Gaza specifically. In Khan Younis, we're facing different kind of challenge. We're facing different kind of challenge because the way we maneuver into Khan Younis is a bit different than the way that we're maneuvering at the north. At the north, we start pushing the people back to the south by starting the maneuver from the north part of Gaza Strip and pushing them south to the Gaza River. And when it comes to Khan Younis, we surrounded Khan Younis with a brigade and attacking or launching strike toward the city from 36 degrees parallelly. So it's like put the people of Khan Younis in kind of a dilemma, and now we're open for them again, kind of a humanitarian path and pushing them down to the south to the area of Rafah. They're close to the shore, what we call the Mawasi Tanat, Mawasi improvised camp of the UN. So to wrap it up and to answer the question shortly, we're not blocking ourselves, we're acting smartly.
Thank you. Then the second question is, we would like to hear your analysis on some of the presentation that Minister Tzachi Hanegbi made. And he said something that you've discussed many times on these briefings, that in order for the civilians who live in northern Israel, on the Lebanese border in the northern Galilee, to feel a sense of comfort, of stability, that they can actually operate and act as civilians without, God forbid, another October 7th happening on the north, it may very well be that Israel will have to insist that Lebanon, that Hezbollah abide by United Nations Resolution 1701, something that the United Nations themselves has not fulfilled, that the Lebanese have violated from 2006. And that is, there may be zero Hezbollah presence anywhere south of the Litani River in order to create a certain gap or a space in southern Lebanon where you don't have Hezbollah terrorists literally breathing down the neck of civilians living in northern Israel. So he said that is something that we're going to need to have happen, whether it'll happen militarily, through diplomatic resolution, or through some other resolution, in order to protect our people in the north. If you could comment and give your perspective on what Minister Tzachi Hanegbi said.
So I definitely agree with what he said. And that's the way the IDF and the Minister of Defense sees the situation. We're saying again and again from the very beginning of our briefs that the fact that we are not launching a bigger operation at the north, it's not because it's not a problem. It's because we are trying to focus as much as we can for now at the south, at the challenge of destroying Hamas, and keeping the challenge at the north along the borders, limited friction along the border under the threshold of war. It doesn't mean that we can get a ceasefire and just go back to the villages and the settlements along the border tomorrow when we'll finish the operation at the south. We'll have to somehow push the Hezbollah north to the Litani River, like we agree in 1701 in 2006. It could happen by force, and it could happen diplomatically. It doesn't matter how they're going to move north to the Litani River, but we cannot accept them sitting along the border and aiming our towns and settlements and villages along the border. And from that perspective, I totally agree with what Tzachi Hanegbi said. We probably will have to deal with it somewhere over the next few months, I guess, around the spring of 2024.
Thank you for sharing that. Major General Padan, do you have any other thoughts that you wanted to share, or any updates or perspectives you wanted to share with our participants?
So there is only one thing that we should keep in our mind, and we should continue monitoring. It's what happened at the Middle East as a whole. While Iran is aiming not to let this war become kind of a all Mediterranean war, and by that kind of a war that will change dramatically the economic situation in the world, and especially in Europe, they are changing and pushing the regime to a regional war by, for example, pushing their proxies in Yemen, the Houthi, to launch a naval blockade. They declared yesterday that every Israeli ship, or partly Israeli ship, that will try to go through Asia around the Saudi Arabian, the Arab Peninsula, they will attack them. And I don't know if you heard the news, but during the night, early this morning, a battleship of French attacked or tackled 2 drones that launched out it from Yemen. So the routes that connect between Asia, the naval routes that connect between Asia and Europe, are actually under threat right now, and it's caused delays, and it caused increase of prices in Europe, and it start to become kind of a global or Western European problem. So it's not the existence of the U.S. and other coalition Western forces that are shipping along the Arab Peninsula is part of this kind of global war to control and to push this region to an unstable situation, which is a Patrick plate for growing up of radical ideas like the Muslim revolution ideas of the Iranian. And we have to monitor it and see how it's going to develop, not only from the Israeli perspective, but from a global perspective, and mostly from Western eyes perspective. That's a new, it's not a new development, but it's extension of a phenomena that we faced from the very beginning of this war.
I'm speaking personally because as a German Jew, as a child of German Jewish survivors, the world could have stopped National Socialism in 34, 35, 36, when Hitler was developing, a full ocean, a deep sea navy, when he's developing a Luftwaffe, when they were starting to create the kind of munitions that violated every detail of the Versailles Treaty. Then in 38, when he went, when Neville Chamberlain went and basically sold out Czechoslovakia, gave the Sudetenland to the Germans. At every step of the way, Germany could have been stopped. And that would have saved 58 million, literally 58 million human beings. The world has never, ever recovered from the disaster of World War II. And it could have been stopped. And unfortunately, that's what we see with Iran. We saw it 20 years ago. We saw it 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, today. If the world would stop Iran, Israel wouldn't have to be dealing with Hezbollah, wouldn't have to be dealing with the Houthis, wouldn't have to be dealing with Hamas. And this is not an Israeli problem. As you've said many times on these briefings, it's a Sunni Arab problem. It's a Western civilization problem. It's a problem for anyone who stands for decency, anyone who stands for justice, morality, and basic human values. And it's an incredible, incredible mistake and a repeat of history that the West is not dealing with Iran and its proxies, because the time to stop them are when they don't have the capabilities and they don't have the firepower. But we're just not seeing that. And Israel's standing up for the world.
From the light of this holiday period of time, we can add a sparkle of light to this conversation and saying that the fact that the Iranian pushed the Houthis to launch this naval blockade, it's a huge mistake, because it influenced the economy of Europe, and by that, pushing the European to start dealing with what's going on in at a war in the Middle East, not only by zipping the channels at the TV, but actually having to deal with it. And we start seeing battleship from France and Britain and Australia at the area. And it's not only because they are training navigation at the Middle East. They're really worried about what's going on here. And from that perspective, the Iranian, to my understanding, are doing a huge mistake.
Just for our listeners, probably 1/3 of all of the world's petroleum passes through a very, very narrow strait called the Straits of Yemen. I believe in Arabic it's called Bab el Wad. The Straits of Yemen is where the Yam Suf, the Reed Sea, meets the Gulf of Aden. And the Houthis control that. They literally could create a worldwide depression by shutting that down. In general, what you're saying is that the Europeans have become very, very aware of what the ramifications of the Houthis are, and they're bringing their battleships into these areas.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
Do you have any last thoughts? If not, I just wanted to wish all of our listeners and our participants and those who are part of the Friends of the IDF, the family of FIDF, a happy Hanukkah. To our Christian friends, a wonderful holiday season. And we want to thank those Christian, those Jewish supporters of the soldiers. And just to remind everyone, and we know you understand it, but 100%, every penny that is given to the emergency campaign goes to the IDF and the Ministry of Defense. And the kind of responsibilities we're being asked to do vis-a-vis therapies for PTSD, whether it's the rebuilding, whether it's what has been provided already in terms of emergency medical equipment, basic needs, basic clothing, just keeping in mind, and General Padan has shared with us just how cold it is in those mountaintops south of Syria and south of Lebanon this time of year, the winter in the Middle East. And the Gaza itself, it's a desert climate. It may be decent during the day, but at night is a desert climate. It's extremely cold. Over $12 million has gone just for clothing, for basic clothing to keep those soldiers warm. And we can't thank you enough. We ask each and every one of you to reach out to your networks, to reach out to your friends, your customers, your relatives, to please continue supporting this campaign. As General Padan has shared with us, this is a long war, and this is a war that's not going to end in a week or two, and we need the continuous support. I'm sorry, General Padan, please, any last thoughts?
Just want to say to everyone, Happy Hanukkah, and as been mentioned more than once, it's war of our spirit, like the story of this holiday. And each small light that gather into the marge of light of the Jewish people will light the light of the great light of the Middle East and the light of the state of Israel. So thank you for adding your light to the effort of bringing light to the state of Israel. Thank you.